Today on Locked On Red Wings, we're going to give you our reactions to the Jeff Blashill firing, as well as recap the final game of the season.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty is also host over at Locked On Tigers. I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I know they got a lot of odds on the first round of the playoffs as well, so definitely go check it out for that.
We'll probably touch on that I would imagine at some point later in the week. Not today. Today we got much more pressing matters.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was a whirlwind of a weekend. The Red Wings played their final game on Friday. Won, 5-3 over the New Jersey Devils. Bertuzzi got his 30th. Seider got his 50th point of the season. Hellberg got the start and the win.
Oh, Hellberg.
But then on Saturday, less than 24 hours, it might have been like 6. No, maybe 6 is too little, but like 12 hours after the game had ended, Scotty.
Right up.
The Red Wings just posted a tweet. Steve Yzerman has elected not to renew the contract of Jeff Blashill and assistant coach Dan Houda and Jeff Salajko, assistant coach and goaltending coach. And it wasn't a surprise, Scotty, but also still wow, that happened fast. That decision, that decision was made about 2 months ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, you don't do nothing 12 hours after the season ends without having your mind made up weeks, if not months beforehand. That was what and all-time day on Red Wings Twitter. All time.
Crazy.
Maybe top 5 Red Wings Twitter day of all time. At the memes and the videos and the reaction, just a whirlwind, insanity, crazy day. We kind of touched on this a little bit on our, we did a now, right? An instant video when it first happened, right? And I think we knew it was coming, but we weren't sure it was gonna happen at the same. I think everybody knew.
It seemed the most logical thing that was going to happen, but we knew the other options were out there. And us not being general manager, we weren't sure that was what made sense. Wasn't to us isn't necessarily what always happens. Not that Steve Yzerman doesn't make logical moves, but sometimes he goes out there and he surprises you. So we just weren't sure that what made sense to us is what Steve Yzerman was thinking.
For sure. And so even though everybody, I mean, not to be, no disrespect, but everybody wanted it to happen. I think almost all of the fan base pretty much wanted it to happen. And I think most of the fan base even expected it to happen. However, even when the news came across, it was still whoa,
it felt surreal,
right? The timing of it definitely had something to do with it, but I think there was always this doubt in the back of people's minds that was maybe next year's another rebuild year.
Well, you got Connor Bedard next year, and Yzerman did sign him to the 2-year contract,
right? And
then Pierre LeBrun's it's believed that the second year was an option, and they chose not to bring it up, which is why the term renew was used. And that is huge information, and I don't know if that's just information that I missed back when they extended him before the season started, or if it's just something that
contract details on coaches are always
so murky.
Wraps.
Yeah, they never tell you. But yeah, and I do want to preface this by saying it was the right move organizationally, and I think I might have touched on this in the now, and I will not deny that. But anything we say in today's episode is absolutely not a shot at Jeff Blashill as a person. He is well regarded in the locker room from what I understand, and in hockey circles abroad. He's going to have another coaching job, whether as a head coach or as an assistant coach somewhere in the NHL. and he's a great guy. I've had the chance to speak with him a couple times, at my part-time job at the radio station. Fantastic guy. But this is the nature of the business. The wheels fell off this season in the first season where he had actual NHL talent around him. Yzerman gave him a chance. Steve Yzerman said, listen, this is the first year you're going to have actual talent since the 2016 year, your first year when you snuck into the playoffs. Since the rebuild began, this is the first year you're going to have talent. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to take that talent and flourish. And until the All-Star break, the team was competitive. And even I was saying, well, if the team stays 500 or hair above it or hair below it until the end of the season, I'm okay with picking up the option. Or at the time, I didn't know there was an option at the time, but okay with him staying through the next year of his contract. But then All-Star break happened, and we talked about it on end because we were living through it, Scotty. It was awful. Like, it wasn't just bad. Like, it wasn't even the wheels fell off. The car was on cinder blocks. Like, it was so awful how they were losing, and they were losing every game the same way, and the team continued to fail to adjust, and the amount of goals they were giving up. Despite that, and I acknowledge again, rebuilding year, the team was bound to find its level, but what they dipped to was below what their level should have been. Their defense is, despite how poor, I won't say poor, low level the talent is. I don't know what nice way of putting it, but despite how bad the talent was or underperforming the talent was on the defensive end, there's no way they should have given up 11 goals a night, 10 goals a night, 9 goals a night, 8 goals a night on what seemed to be a consistent basis with anybody as head coach. So, I mean, I think that really put a dagger in it. And again, because this came out less than 24 hours after the season had ended, it really makes it seem to believe that this decision was made, a few months ago. Back after the 9-2 loss to the Arizona Coyotes. I don't know.
No, and like that's the crazy thing, and why I think there was still a little bit of uncertainty with a lot of people was because the first half, maybe not exactly the halfway mark, but the first couple of months were such a step in the right direction. And it was like, okay. I mean, there was a narrative out there, like, okay,
Yeah.
we gave Blashill some talent, like, and look what happened. Like that was a narrative that was being pushed by a group of fans. Like there was some steps forward. And even at the end of the year, right? Like even now, there were objectively wins within this season, and we'll get into all of that stuff, when we do like our full season breakdown and everything. But it's just there was always just a little bit of doubt, and like I don't know, like they might stick around. Like the first half wasn't that bad. We sold at the deadline, like maybe I don't know, and like we do have him for the next year if we want him to. Like, is that just the easier option? It really is. It was a fascinating second half of the season in that regard. And just like how I would love to know how quickly, like you said, like how quickly that decision came to be, and at what point in the season that decision was made. Because I mean, I'm not 100. I don't know, like maybe 3 weeks after the All-Star break, you're like, hey, if this ship doesn't get turned around, he's gone. And then it just never got turned around.
Yeah. I don't know when it happened, but I think it definitely happened somewhere in that stretch. And it was a clean sweep of the coaching staff too. I mean, we talk about Jeff Blashill because he's the head coach, he's the head honcho. That's the guy who pulls all the strings. But the goaltending coach and one of the assistant coaches getting canned as well. I mean, really says a lot about where Steve Yzerman feels this coaching staff is at. So I think this is going to be a huge offseason for the Red Wings, not just on like a head coach front, but the assistant coach front, to see what this organization does next, because this is going to be a huge, like, I think this might be the biggest transitionary year for the Tigers, the Red Wings. Since the last time we brought in a new head coach, since the rebuild has begun, because for the first time since the team last made the playoffs, there's going to be a new voice behind the bench. And that's like, really, we talk about how we begin the rebuild. I mean, it comes with a new head coach, and you could make the argument that, with the Tigers going out and getting AJ Hinch, that was like a sign of life. So maybe this was just purely a desperation move because the voice needed to be changed, but it also could be B, from an organizational standpoint, the team's looking to make that next step. And I want to get into that with you, Scotty. But first, I do got to talk to you guys today about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Don't forget those NHL playoffs. We got all kinds of odds. We're going to bring those to you tomorrow. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about the firing of Jeff Blashill. First segment was all about our reaction to it and why we thought it had to be done. Segment 2, I kind of want to ask you, what this means for the team going forward and the culture in the locker room.
For sure. I think I just punched my mic on accident. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I do it so often. It's actually ridiculous. I think that I always go back to a conversation Nolan and I had about this when they extended him, and about how, the future, because I was pretty, I was pretty against the extension, and Nolan was for it at the time. And I remember my conversation with him, and my main point in our back and forth on that episode was the sample and the sample size, I guess you would say. The amount of times that a head coach has come in any of the 4 sports, has come in and was brought in making the playoffs, right? Playoff caliber head coach, playoff team at least. Then the rebuild starts, they sell everything out, and they hit their rock bottom, and then go back up, and then make the playoffs again and win a championship. The amount of times that a coach, manager, whatever, in any of the sports has been able to go through the entire cycle of a rebuild like that is minuscule, if not zero. I'm not sure I can even name you someone that successfully was able to do that. That was successfully able to take over, playoff team, sell everything, build everything back up, back to playoffs, back to championship. That list is so unbelievably small that no matter what your opinion of Blashill was, just seeing, thinking that it was ever going to be the entire thing, like that he was ever going to make it back to when this team was good again, I never believed that was even a remote possibility. And he was given horrible rosters for a majority of his tenure here. He was just greatest coach of all time, wasn't doing anything with it. Terrible rosters.
Well, and that's what makes this season. That's what made this season so critical for him.
Exactly. And this season, this was the year that he was given something. Was it a championship roster? No. Was it even a playoff roster? That's a debate. That's a little more subjective. But
it was not a playoff roster.
Right.
Not in this division.
The defense, right. That's the biggest thing. The division we play in. B, the defense was horrific. So what... I guess the thing I just always go back to is he would have had to over-accomplish what was set out for him going into this year to stick around. I think now that he's gone, I think we can say that with confidence. He would have had to have been over 500 in the win-loss column and maybe in the playoff hunt, with a season left. A month left.
Yeah.
And to your original question, now that I've rambled on for 3 minutes,
it's good.
Going forward, I think it shows and it makes a statement that it's winning time. And not that Blashill didn't want to win. From everything I've heard, That dude really cared about his job. But I think it sends a statement that this is not the old Detroit Red Wings. This is not the Detroit Red Wings of the last half decade that are just cellar dwellers and are, fighting for a top pick every year. You
Yeah.
have all your rookies, you have your core for the future. They're all in the NHL. Your main core for your believed to be next like championship run is all at the NHL level. Anything else that comes is not like frosting. Like we have some really interesting and intriguing prospects, but your main core, they're all in the show. They're all getting minutes at the NHL level. So this from here on out is winning time, intent to win, no longer rebuilding. Yeah, I said the same thing when we brought in Hinch. No more tanking, no more sell. I mean, at the deadline, if you have to sell, you have to sell. But like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand.
It's. I think that's what it says more than anything.
No, I completely agree. I think that it's a situation where both are true. You had to fire your head coach because he wasn't getting the job done. You gave him the opportunity, he wasn't, but also B, because it's just time to take that next step forward. And who those coaching candidates are going to be, I don't know yet. I know there's a lot of names out there. The coaching carousel in the NHL is always alive and true, and there's a couple guys out there who are going to probably names are going to pop up in conversations. I don't know how serious they're going to be as contenders. And then you got guys like Igor Larionov and Sergei Fedorov, who, Red Wings fans love the idea of because of the hometown bias. I'm not saying they're not good coaches. They are fantastic coaches. But chances of Larionov and Fedorov coming here are pretty minimal at best because they both just inked new KHL contracts. And then the guys who I think are going to get the most talked about, and we actually got a tweet from Andy Strickland today, Scotty. And we want to do an episode. I'm not going to go too deep on this because you and I want to do an episode like really research head coaching candidates. But Andy Strickland of the St. Louis Blues, ringside reporter for the Valley Sports out there, said that expect NHL teams to inquire about hiring Joel Quenneville as the head coach. Here he wants back behind the bench, and there is expected to be significant interest in hiring the future Hall of Famer. Q will need to meet with Commissioner Gary Bettman to be reinstated.
Spoiler alert, I'm good on that.
Yeah, same. So here's the thing. Joel Quenneville is a fantastic coach. I will not deny that. I won't take that away from him. He coached 3 Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks teams, and he was the coach for the first half of the season or first quarter of the season with the Panthers this year. They're a fantastic team, although I don't know how much of that is. I mean, they changed head coaches, and they're still President's Trophy winners.
Yeah.
But the problem is obviously being the scandal that was the 2010 Stanley Cup championship Blackhawks and what's behind that, which is the reason why he's not the head coach of the Panthers anymore. I don't need that kind of you'll get those arguments about with the whole AJ Hinch thing. It's a different type of situation altogether. What happened with AJ Hinch, still, I mean, not really defensible. I feel like he was made out to be a little bit of the scapegoat in that situation.
He was.
But also cheating is different from sexual assault by a long run. And obviously Quenneville didn't do the sexual assault thing, but it is the fact that he's not it is highly the sexual assault thing. Like it's just, I'm good on that. I don't want that drama in my life.
I don't need the baggage and the circus that comes along with that.
Regardless of whether or not he had the knowledge that it was happening. I just don't want that kind of conversation following him everywhere he goes as head coach of the Red Wings.
Correct. Yeah. I don't need, I'm good on that. Like no matter what, well, you can leave your personal opinion on whether he knew his involvement in it, whatever, is completely ringside. We can not even talk about it in that regard because, like, obviously everybody is just going to have their own opinion on that. But I mean, objectively, he's going to bring a lot of conversation. There's going to be a lot of a negative narrative around him coming back and coaching. Period. There is. It just feels like a really quick way to rightfully piss a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is a direction that we need to go in.
It is really no coincidence, Scotty, that tweet comes out a day after
Correct.
Blashill got fired. Like, let's be honest. So That was just spinning the wheel of the speculation train. The other guy I don't care for, John Tortorella. Listen,
I'm good on that.
I'm good on that. He is a very unique talent of coming in
He's a
and
hockey guy.
getting the most out of his players for about 2-3 years, and then leaving that team after his players turn on him and hate him because he's a hard ass, and that's his thing. I mean, we
He's
saw
a
with the
hockey guy.
Rangers, we
He's a
saw it with the
pure hockey
Canucks.
guy.
Oh yeah, and we saw it with Columbus. He comes in, takes that team to new heights, and then the team turns on him and bottoms out. Like it happened in Columbus. The Rangers went to a Stanley Cup final with him. He has one ring with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2004. And then the same thing happened with the Canucks. So it's just I'm good on that. If the next coach I want to hire, I want to be the coach for the Red Wings for years to come to take him to that
Right.
to the summit. You know, I don't want
You
to.
don't want a bridge coach.
I don't want a bridge coach. You know,
No,
so
we're done with that.
those are
We
my
just had a bridge coach to get us through a rebuild. We're trying to find.
second most tenured coach in the NHL.
I know, it's crazy, but I still believe it. I think it's just we're looking for, like you said, we're looking for the guy for the future. I do have a couple more questions that I just want your opinion on with Blash.
Oh, okay. Well, give me 1 second. I got to talk to the folks today about Built Bar first.
About the banner you're going to put up.
About the banner I'm going to put up. Boom. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bag, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious foods for health. With Built Bar, you have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and enjoy eating it as well. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar that normally has around 240 calories with 30 grams of sugar and dozens of net carbs. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, he said you had a couple more questions for me here.
Yeah, I think my first one is just like kind of with our conversation earlier. What do you think? I kind of voiced my opinion. What do you think Blashill would have had to have done this season to be behind the bench on opening night this fall?
Honestly, if he was able to, and this is my honest opinion, like I'm not BSing you. Some people will think that it's not enough, but I think if he was able to maintain what happened pre All-Star break, post All-Star break, this team finish 500 or even a hair beneath it, I think that's a huge step forward for this team in terms of competitiveness. And we talked a lot about that when they were achieving that partway through the season. That's a huge step forward for this team's competitiveness. And I think Yzerman would have seen that as like, okay, this guy can ball. Like he was able to get this team. The big caveat to that is the power play still stinks under him. Regardless, even when the team was playing well, the power play was awful. And it's been awful his entire tenure as head coach. And obviously you have a power play coach, but it comes back down on him. But I think if this team finishes at least 500, even if they don't make the playoffs, if they finish at least 500 on the season, that's going to be an 80-point season for a team with 4 rookies on the team. I mean, that would have been enough.
What do you think? I don't even know how I want to word this one. How much of a difference do you think there would be in this team's production next year with the guy we'll bring in? Might be a hard question because it's a question mark right now, but the guy we bring in versus
Coach X.
Coach X versus what Blashill would have provided next season.
I mean, that is a very hard question to answer.
It's hard because we don't know who our coach is. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that whatever coach they bring in would be able to at least provide a spark, having been a new, voice in the locker room to get the guys to play on a next level. You come back next season and you have a healthy Larkin, you have a healthy Fabry back as well, and you're going to have, hopefully Simon Edvinsson in the lineup. I mean, I think he just has to have an impressive camp, and the roster spot is there on the defense.
For sure.
So you're looking at an improved roster again. So another step forward with a new voice in the locker room. I'm not expecting. I don't know, man. Unless they make some big splash in the offseason, I still don't really expect this team to compete for a divisional spot in the playoffs, but could they make an argument and hang in there for the wild card? Yeah, I think a big enough step forward next year with a new head coach, they could. Yeah, just be in that mix, be a wild card contender, let's say.
For sure. Fair enough. I think I agree with that. My last thing is just final words, putting a bow on it, just your review and last words on the Jeff Blashill tenure with the Detroit Red Wings.
Misfortunate, unfortunate. That's probably the word I would use. I go back to the fact that like he and people have been calling for his head for years, and I was just like, why? There's no need to fire a coach who is coaching a team that's meant to fail, and that's the big argument I go back to. Is this team and obviously coaching and players are always going to give it their all, but this team was not meant to win hockey games since 2017 onward. They embraced a full scale rebuild. He was intentionally coaching a team that was not supposed to make the playoffs in order to accumulate draft talent, which we are now seeing at the NHL level. So I don't have any hard feelings. I'm not like I wouldn't even say I was happy that Jeff Blashill got fired. I wasn't upset, obviously, but I was like, okay, yeah, Jeff Blashill is fired. That's the right move to make. But I never thought to myself, I mean, obviously I was very frustrated during that stretch there post All-Star break about how poor the team was playing. And I agreed in that time when talking with you that he needed to go. But, I look back at his tenure and it's just like, yeah, I mean, this was the only real season he had as head coach, it felt like. That in the 2016 season where they were still trying to compete for the playoffs. So these 2 seasons were the only 2 years. And the 1 year they did make the playoffs and then, lost in 5 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then this year he had fresh rookies up and couldn't make it work. So I really look at those 2 seasons as the only 2 seasons where it's fair to evaluate him as a head coach, in a serious should he stay or should he go sense, because the team wasn't meant to succeed those 5 years in between.
Totally
I
fair.
rambled a lot there.
No, I kind of wanted you to. Like I said, I just wanted like a final, like get everything out of you, like everything you want to say and notice about just his tenure as we kind of wrap. Like we'll talk, in the future we'll talk about possible head coaching candidates and all that stuff. We want to go deep into that sort of thing. But I think as far as talking about Jeff Blashill, like this is probably it. Like this is probably the last time we'll mention him in regards to like the team or anything more than like a passing comment. Like this is it. Like this is the last, this is the last one. So I just want to give you an opportunity to just let it all out there with him. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm happy that it happened, I guess, from the standpoint that it's a huge step forward for the organization and the team played like trash. But like I don't get that fervent dislike for the guy that other people do. I mean,
I know. I agree with that.
I think it's a head coach that gave it his all. I think it's the same. I had the same feelings when Ron Gardenhire suddenly retired. Like it's like, yeah, he was okay. He was an okay manager. Like,
yeah,
but he wasn't the guy
for sure. No, and I think that I agree with that. I think that least we forget when he first got the job, people were pumped.
I was so excited. I'm like, this is Babcock's
this makes
successor.
so much sense. Like he's killing it down in the A. Like this is sick. Like he's the head coach of the future. Like he's gonna be the next like great Red Wings head coach, whatever. Like that was pretty much everyone was on board, and it amazes me how with horrid rosters that like everybody just kind of like jumped ship on that. And I'm not saying that's that opinion is not correct, because he's not. I agree that he's not the guy going forward, and I agree that this is the right decision. But like you said, man, he was given nothing. Like so early on, he was given nothing, and this was really the first legitimate year, and he didn't he didn't really do anything with it. And like I said, I agree that it's the right time going forward, but I don't have like a disdain or like a hatred for Jeff Blashill that some people do. It's just like he was the guy that was behind the bench when we were actively trying to lose. Like that's a tough situation to be in as a head coach when you're actively trying to win every night and your front office is actively trying to lose every night.
Yeah, it really
So
is, man.
it is what it is. The tenure's over. He's gonna be around the NHL. He's gonna be a coach in some regard. Um, and yeah, nothing but the best for the guy. I
Yeah,
don't
wish
have
him luck.
like a disdain or like when Osmus left, I
Wow.
couldn't
Yeah,
I can't even repeat the words that were said when he left and like how happy I was that he was gone and the negative connotation I just associated with him. But Blashill, he was the guy that was he is I guess what I'm trying to say is the fan base has made this like a really dramatic, like huge thing when I don't think it is.
yeah,
Like he was the guy that was your head coach during a rebuild when you were trying to lose, and now you're not trying to lose anymore, so you're going to find your head coach. Like
yeah.
that's all there really is to it, in my opinion. And like maybe at one point 6 years ago, you thought he was the guy. He's not.
That
So
might have been, you
just
know
move
what, that
on.
might lead into why some people, I guess, never moved on from that. This is the guy to replace Babcock and win the next Stanley Cup. And he was supposed to be like,
Maybe.
he's literally supposed to be Babcock too. Like, I remember that was
Yeah. No.
the
Yeah.
conversation. He just, he came off a Calder championship in 2013 with the Griffins. And so people really were excited about him. And he was the coach of guys like Tatar and Nyquist, who, when he took over it in the NHL level, were his guys in the AHL.
Yep.
So people thought like there would be that synergy there to keep them taking a next step forward, and it never materialized, and the team embraced the full rebuild. So, listen, at this point, yeah, I am happy it happened because it means that the Red Wings are going to take another step towards competitiveness, which is very important. But I'm not happy it happened because like I hated Jeff Blashill. Like I just exactly like you said there. I mean, he was just the coach for the rebuild, and now the rebuild is, I won't say wrapping up. I still think there's more rebuilding ahead of us in some regard and in certain aspects as they try to
The
polish.
teardown is over,
The
though.
teardown is
Like, we're
over.
on
The
a
build
build-up
up,
now.
yeah. And so we're the trajectory is upwards at this point. You need a new head coach who can take that team to further heights. And Jeff Blashill just was not the guy to get it done. So hey, good for Red Wings fans everywhere because this is still good news.
Correct. Yeah, no, absolutely good news. It's going to be it adds to an already what was going to be an exciting offseason, makes it even more fun. We're going to have a good time.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a fun offseason, and I'm hoping that this fun offseason leads to a fun season this fall.
Hell yeah. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. From first round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts from every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Stanley Cup kiss threw me off there. I was like, wait, what?
Snooze.
Yeah, snooze. Freudian slip. Hey-oh. No, I'm just kidding. No, they do a great job over there. All the rotation of the hosts that help fill in. It's a fun time. A lot of different perspectives that way.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah, so we didn't get to the recap. I mean, we got all off season, so we'll put that off to right before the season begins to recap the final game.
We should do that. We should recap game 82 the night before opening
Game 1.
night.
No, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea. Just like to look back on. Just see
Just
like
keep people waiting. We're like, we're technically still in season. We haven't done our last game recap.
Yeah, so we will recap that game tomorrow. I will probably wrap it into like a broader season recap as well. But obviously with Seider getting .50, Bertuzzi getting his 30th goal, and Magnus Hellberg getting the start. There are some things we got to touch on in that. Rasmussen Renaissance continues. So we'll talk about that on Tuesday's episode. And we'll be back then. So thanks for listening. We'll be back. Same time, same place.
BetOnline
every day.
every day.